welcome and happy Sunday night. This is the David Kolar Piano Show. Tonight I will be discussing the composition, arranging, and production of my song The Tunnel, but first, this. Broke down a mile from town. Joe's sister had to come and get us. We'd been going 103 I-90 through the middle of South Dakota. When out of nowhere we hit this huge dream, and we started singing. Well, we're young and tough, and we've had enough of stupid grown-up ideas. We'll do what we want and not think a lot about the future that's coming to meet us. And I guess someday we might have bills to pay, but right now we're busy living the glory days. Well, we got expelled from school because we're just that awesome. Now we'll have to go somewhere and not really care where the rest of our lives will come from. When out of nowhere we grew so great, and we started singing. Well, we're young and tough, and we've had enough of stupid grown-up ideas. We'll do what we want and not think a lot about the future that's coming to meet us. And I guess someday we might have bills to pay, but right now we're busy living the glory days. Tough, and we've had enough of stupid grown-up ideas. We'll do what we want and not think a lot about the future that's coming to meet us. And I guess someday might have bills to pay, but right now we're busy living the glory days. We're busy living the glory days. Thank you. Well, welcome to this edition of the David Kolar Piano Show. Excited to be with you tonight. In this episode, I'm going to be discussing the composition, arrangement, and production of my song, The Tunnel. Before we get into that, I'm just going to play the song for you so that to refresh your memory, or if you've never heard it before, to get familiar with it before I go into further discussions. It was as if she had known him forever, but forever was only a week. She knew from the start that he'd play a part in the life that she wanted to lead. But while she saw in him a man that she loved, she knew it would all end too soon. 'Cause they'd be apart, not in distance apart, but in distance across the country. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's gonna make it through. The light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's gonna get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're gonna get there. It was a few dozen miles from where she was, where the man she loved had been. But he had moved on to a city abroad, though his heart was still where they met. And while he still knew it was hard for her too, he was more than confident. They'd find that the stars would align and they'd be together again. 'Cause there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's gonna make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's gonna get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're gonna get there. Every time he calls her up, he always wonders if she's gonna answer. And every time she goes to pick it up, she really hopes it's not the last time. Or should they worry if they know it'll all be alright? Or do they still question the path for the rest of their There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's gonna make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's gonna get there. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're gonna be. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's gonna make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's gonna get there too. Thank you. All right, well, welcome again to the David Kolar Piano Show. That was my song, The Tunnel, which is going to be the song that I'm going to be discussing tonight. So to get right into it, this was a song that I originally wrote back around 2011. There we go. I originally wrote it back around 2011. It is in the key of D major, and it is in 4/4 time. Like a lot of my songs, I wrote the music for this first before I wrote the lyrics, and then eventually the lyrics came along. And that's what I'll be talking about first, is the writing of the lyrics and the meaning behind them. Before I do that, I just wanted to quickly run through a few terms as I go through these breakdowns. That might be helpful if you're not familiar. What I'm going to be talking about through these breakdowns is the composition, arrangement, and production of these songs. When I say composition, I'm referring to writing the melody and the harmonies that go with that, and the lyrics in cases where a song has lyrics. The arrangement is what instruments are playing, when are they playing? Are they playing throughout the whole song or only in certain sections? And then the production refers to the recording and the mixing of the song. So how am I recording each instrument? Is an instrument live? Is it like a digital MIDI instrument? And then the actual mixing. So that's balancing all the instruments against each other, adding any effects and processing, and then building that up through the recording process. So just wanted to familiarize you with those terms if you're not familiar with those prior to now. So the first thing I wanted to do is just get into the lyrics. I'm going to go ahead and read through the lyrics to the song. And then I will kind of break down a few points on what I think is going on lyrically and what I was thinking about when writing it. So here are the lyrics. Verse 1. It was as if she had known him forever, but forever was only a week. She knew from the start that he'd play a part in the life that she wanted to lead. But while she saw in him a man that she loved, she knew it would all end too soon, 'cause they'd be apart not in distance of heart, but in distance across the country. And the chorus. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's going to make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's going to get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're going to meet there. Second verse. It was a few thousand miles from where she was, where the man she loved had been, but he had moved on to a city abroad, though his heart was still where they'd met. And while he still knew it was hard for her too, he was more than confident that one day they'd find that the stars would align and they'd be together again. Because there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's going to make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's going to get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're going to meet there. And into the bridge. Every time he calls her up, he always wonders if she's going to answer. And every time she goes to pick it up, she really hopes it's not the last time. Why should they worry if they know it'll all be all right? Why do they still question the path for the rest of their lives? And then there's their chorus repeated 2 times. I'll just read the last version. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's going to make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's going to get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're going to meet there soon. So those are the lyrics. In general, this is a song about long-distance relationships and maybe some of the doubts and hardships of having to work through that. As far as what's going on lyrically, the first verse is really kind of from the female's perspective. It was if she had known him forever, but forever was only a week. She knew from the start, etc. Talking about that from the female's perspective. And then the second verse is looking at it from the man's perspective. But he had moved on to a city abroad, though his heart was still where they'd met. So kind of showing those 2 different sides of that coin. And then the chorus is just kind of reaffirming that, there is something good that's going to come out of this. It's definitely a song of hope. But there's a lot of, within the lyrics, there's a lot of, is it going to happen? Is this really meant to be? And when it might be so obvious to other people that, yes, you're supposed to be together, it might still be hard for those 2 people to really be able to see that, and especially doing long-term or long distance. And then the bridge is probably the most personal part of the song for myself, where it says, every time he calls her up, he always wonders if she's going to answer. And every time she goes to pick it up, she really hopes it's not the last time. Why should they worry if they know it'll all be all right? Why do they still question the path for the rest of their lives? So something that I've dealt with a lot in my relationships, and even the relationship with my now wife, is this feeling of like, okay, I'm going to send this text or call them, and like, are they going to answer? Are they going to, answer my text back? Just kind of that self-doubt. And even if there's a part of you that knows, okay, this is like meant to be, there might still be some of that anxiety throughout the relationship. The other thing I just wanted to mention about the lyrics before I move on to the music is at the end of each chorus, there's sort of a trail off of the lyrics. So the last line is, "There's a light at the end of the tunnel," and they know they're going to meet there, and then it just that's sort of an open thought. And then during the very last chorus, it resolves that, and they know they're going to meet there soon. So just kind of gaining this confidence of, okay, this is going to work out, and we're gonna get there soon. Now to talk through the actual music. So like I said, this is written in the key of D major, but it actually uses quite a few chords that are outside of the key of D major. So just to sort of go through the intro, which is also the chords for the chorus, we start out with a D major chord. Then we end up getting to basically a B minor 7. And this is like a D over G. And that's just a D with the F sharp at the bottom instead of a regular D. That B minor 7 again. Then we end on this like A suspended. So instead of the just A major, it's got that fourth in there, suspending it, sort of giving a little bit of a tension, or it's not quite resolved. So that's what the chorus chords essentially are. Going into the verses, this is where things get a little bit interesting. And that's going to be just basically a G9. There's a lot of 9 chords in this song. So that's G. It's basically G, B, D with an A in it. Then we go to an A9, to an F sharp minor, back to the G9. And this is where it really gets interesting. We go to basically a B7. Which isn't actually in the key of D, so that's a chord outside of the key, but I think it really works well there. And then again, G9 to A9 to F sharp minor to G9, and that's like an E suspended to an E major, which again is not in the key of G. Or sorry, not in the key of D. Normally it'd be E minor. We give that major. It's back to the G9. And to an A. And then back into the chorus. So there's a few chords outside of the key, which you don't always see, but I think it works well in this case. Going into the bridge, it starts out on a D with the F sharp in the bottom, to a G, and then we get that E minor, which is in the key of D, to A, pretty standard chord progression, and then here we get a really interesting chord. I guess that's like a G sharp diminished to A, so it's kind of a passing thing from the to a C sharp minor, to an F sharp minor, and now an F sharp major with a A sharp in the bottom, to a B minor, and now we get from the verse we get the same to the E major, to G9, to an A, and then we go into the piano solo. So just a lot of kind of funky chords there in the bridge. As far as the And then the last thing I'll point out about the piano part is there's the bass line is following kind of this offbeat pattern in the choruses. So I'll just play that quick. One, two, and three, and four, and one, two, and. So instead of being on the beat like this, it's on the and. The and. That changes during the last chorus, mostly because of what the right hand is doing. So the right hand changes from just doing kind of these block chords to an arpeggiated line. And because of that, the bass changes to being on the beat instead of that and. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 4, 1. And it gives just a bit of a different feel to the last chorus. And you'll hear that in the production as well, with the drums and the bass following that same pattern. So as far as the arrangement, I'm going to start by playing the original 2012-ish recording that I did back in college, just to sort of compare and contrast how it started versus the production, how it ended up being. So if I go to that, give me a second here. Excuse me. Couple things I'll point out right away. This is a lot faster than the current version. When I went to record this current version, I realized that it really needed to slow down and just groove a lot more. My vocals sound quite a bit different. Just the style I'm singing with is a lot different. I think part of that is just because I'm rushing through the lyrics, just trying to get them out. And then the instruments that are in this version is like the version of today is the piano, drums, and bass, but then there's also an acoustic guitar part and an organ part. Ended up taking both of those parts out in the newer version, but I'll let you listen to a little bit of this original version.
It was as if she had known him forever, but forever was only a week. She knew from the start that he'd play a part in the life that she wanted to lead. But while she saw in him a man that she loved, she knew it would all end too soon. Cause they'd be apart, not in distance apart, but in distance across the country. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's gonna make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows she's gonna get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're gonna meet there. It was a few thousand miles.
So that's a little bit of the original recording. As you can tell, it's a lot faster and a little bit of a different arrangement as far as what instruments are playing. A couple other things I wanted to point out is the very first piano part, or the intro piano part, in this version is down an octave from where it ended up being in the final version. So in that version, it was down here. And in the final version, the first half of that, I raised it up an octave. And I decided to do that because I think it just helps to make the piano part punch through a bit more at the beginning there. And then the last thing I wanted to mention about this version, in contrast to the more recent version, is that there's not as much space between sections. So especially between the intro and the first verse and the first chorus and the second verse. In the newer recording, there's like an extra bar where it's just kind of holding, and then we kick into that next part. I think it just helps the song breathe a little bit better than this original recording. So now to get into the arrangement of this more recent recording, one thing, what I'm going to do here, actually, before I do that, I'm going to just briefly stop and restart the stream so I can not have the overlay. Give me 1 second. All right, we should be back now. So for the arrangement, I wanted to pull up a little overlay and show you, give you kind of a visual representation of what is going on with the arrangement to give it some interest and to really make it grow and expand and contract throughout, and keep a lot of interest throughout the song. So as you can see on here, across the top is each section of the song. So we have the intro, verse 1, verse 2, chorus 2, bridge, piano solo, chorus 3, chorus 4, and the outro. And then down the left side, I've given every instrument. The only thing that's not included in here is the clap that happens between like the intro and the first verse and the chorus and the second verse. But I thought that was minor enough that I didn't include it in here. But we've got drums, bass, piano, strings. There's a drum effect, synth, lead vocal, Vox's vocal, background Vox, harmony Vox, and then a piano double. So I think this gives a good visual representation of what is going on throughout the piece and the interest that can be drawn from choosing which instruments are playing and when they're playing. So as you can see in the intro, it's pretty standard drums, bass, piano, and strings. And then once we get into the first verse, the strings drop out, the lead vocal comes in. Then we get into the first chorus where we add a drum effect and a background vocal. So just sort of some backgrounds there, providing some harmonies. Not to be confused with the harmony vocals, which I'll explain in a second. And I wanted to play that drum effect so you can hear that isolated. So this is the drum effect. It's just kind of like a drum loop that is added in there. So just gives it a little bit more thickness in the chorus, provides again a little bit more interest to the ears. Then we get into verse 2, and I add in a harmony vocal line, which is just doing a single harmony around the regular vocal melody. And I can play a little bit of that for you. It won't be isolated, but you can hear it with all of the other instrumentation. And it sounds, I was listening back to it, it's not the greatest vocal performance, but within the mix and just as a layer underneath the lead vocal, I think it works pretty well. But here's that background vocal with the other instruments.
Few thousand miles from where she was, where the man she loved had been, but he had moved on to a city abroad, though his heart was still with her man. When he still knew it was hard for her too, he was more than confident. The wonder they'd find the stars would align and we'd be together again.
So another thing to add some more interest, make it a little bit different than the first verse. Then we get to chorus 2, which is probably the thickest part of the production, where again we've got that drum effect in there, we've got the strings, and then we add a synth part, which is just doing a really simple arpeggiated thing, and I'll play that really quick. Again, just something to add a little bit of sparkle and bring a little bit more interest into that second chorus, make it stand out from the first chorus. Then we get to the bridge, and it's, again, we've got some background vocals in there, along with your regular piano, bass, drum, strings. The piano solo adds in a piano double, which in the backing tracks you can hear that. Let me see if I can find it. So it's basically just the piano solo up like an octave, or 1 octave and 2 octaves, I believe. So again, just to add a little bit more thickness to that piano part and give it some sparkle. And then once we get to the third chorus, this is one of the most interesting, at least for me, one of the most interesting parts of the production, is that I really bring it down. And we've had a lot of thick arrangement. And now we get to the third chorus, and it's just piano, strings doing a very simple, just single note. And then the vocals. And that's for the first half. And the second half of the third chorus, the drums and bass kick back in. The fourth chorus, we bring back in the synth, and there's actually no drum effect this time, but just we do bring in the synth, and then the outro, which just goes right back down to drums, bass, and piano to finish things off. So I hope that's a good kind of visual representation of what's going on throughout the song and how it's drawing your ears and keeping things interesting throughout. And then the last thing I wanted to play was, at one point, like the original recording, I really wanted to have a guitar part in here, just doing some strumming. I had my friend Eric Newman come over, and he had an electric guitar and played through a part. Didn't end up using it in the final production, but I kept the recording of the guitar, and I actually created a just guitar and vocal version, which I think is kind of interesting. So I wanted to play that for you briefly, so you can kind of get the idea of that. I think it's kind of fun as a sort of a different feel, different version of the song, and how much arrangement can really play a part in what the song sounds like and feels like. So I'll just start probably from the first verse.
It was as if she had known him forever, but forever was only a week. She knew from the start that he'd play a part in the life that she wanted to lead. But while she saw in him a man that she loved, she knew it would all end too soon. Cause they'd be apart, not in distance of heart, but in distance across the country. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's gonna make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's gonna get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're gonna meet there.
It's just a little bit of a taste of that guitar and vocal version. I might release that as some sort of bonus track or something some day down the line, but I wanted to at least give you a taste of that version of it. With all that being said, I'm going to play the actual studio recording one more time. Now that I've talked through kind of what all the different elements are going on there. So I hope you enjoy The Tunnel.
It was as if she had known him forever, but forever was only a week. She knew from the start that he'd play a part in the life that she wanted to lead. But while she saw in him a man that she loved, she knew it would all end too soon. Cause they'd be apart, not in distance of heart, but in distance across the country. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's gonna make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's gonna get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're gonna meet there. It was a few thousand miles from where she was, where the man she loved had been. But he had moved on to a city abroad, though his heart was still where they met. Well, he still knew it was hard for her too. He was more than confident. The one day they'd find that the stars would align and they'd be together again. He says a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's gonna make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's gonna get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're gonna meet there. Every time 'cause there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's gonna make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's gonna get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're gonna meet. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and he knows he's gonna make it through. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and she knows she's gonna get there too. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and they know they're gonna meet there soon.
All right, thank you. That was The Tunnel. Thanks for joining me tonight. I'm going to finish up with one more piece. Before I do that, my next show, live stream, is going to be on July 6th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. That's a Thursday night in a couple weeks. I'm going to be breaking down the song Mind Wanders, which is the third song on the album Elastic Plastic. You can see the link up there on the screen. As well as streaming these on Facebook, I also upload them to YouTube as well, so you can always check me out there. I appreciate it if you would, and go ahead and subscribe to my channel. That's at David Kolar Music. There's the YouTube link right there. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind going and checking that out and subscribing to that channel, I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel, so that would be a great help for me. And then if you want to give a follow on Facebook to David Kolar Music, you'll be always able to see these live then. The last song I'm going to play tonight is a song called Home Base. It's one of my more recent songs. I wrote it in 2021. I finished it. It uses like a loop on my keyboard. I wanted to create a song that had just a very simple loop, bass and drum loop, but then through the piano part, make it interesting throughout the whole piece. It was originally written as a duet. I think the only time I've performed it live, it was with friend Liz Bonnell, who sang the other part, the female part, I guess. I'll just be performing it solo tonight, but hope you enjoy Home Base. There we go, that's better. Down, go through the clouds to our home base. you so much for joining me tonight. Hope you had fun and enjoyed the music. I'll see you next time.